Gizmo, Mogwai, Grimples, Nick Kravitz, William Shatner, Bugs Bunny. Why do all the video intros go back to Bugs Bunny? Let's talk about Gremlins. Ah, Gremlins. For all intents and purposes, they're fake goblins.
But Rook, didn't we already do a goblin episode?
Yes, we did. So shut up. Gremlins are goblins, but they are specifically twisted goblins. Twisted goblins sounds kind of like a fancy shot you'd get at a D&D nightclub. Wait, are there D&D nightclubs? The bouncer's just like a giant bugbear checking people's nerd cards. But I only have the one set of dice.
You know the rules, 3 dice at minimum.
So when I say they're twisted, this can be by evil wizards, or spending time in the Feywild, or apparently for just being way too dirty. Goblins are surprisingly adaptable, so it would make sense that at some point their chaotic nature and rampant shenanigans would become the forefront of their personality. Gremlins are the most goblin a goblin can be. A distillation of goblinness, or an essence of goblin waft over pure Feywild mischief. And as such, gremlins are slightly smaller than goblins. Usually tiny creatures, but can move into the smaller size. They're basically smaller goblins, varying from a few inches to a foot normally. Kind of like a goblin espresso. Very small, but it's gonna fuck your day up. And as for their stats, if you want to play one, you get like a +2 bonus to dexterity and a +1 to either wisdom or intelligence, depending on the flavor of the gremlin you want to play. You know, before I made a joke about what goblins tasted like, I would just advise never getting a gremlin near your mouth, ever. You're gonna get a disease. Most builds do the wisdom because they are very clever. They're very mischievous, but not always the most intelligent. The one thing they do all have in common is their ability to just seriously fuck up the day of people and creatures around them. I'm serious about it. It's basically the whole gremlin kit. Look at Grimples, for instance. That's definitely a type of gremlin. I didn't make it up. They have gremlin lice, and that isn't an, oh, just go take a bath, it'll go away. It's part of them. Like, they like it. They like the lice.
Rugby, stop playing with that gremlin. You're gonna get lice.
All Grimples are infected with gremlin lice. Whenever a warm-blooded creature comes into physical contact with a Grimple, there is a 25% chance it contracts gremlin lice, which basically a D4 round later, they start to itch, and that itch is so distracting that they basically take a -1 penalty on concentration checks and initiative checks. I think that's pretty funny. It lasts for 24 hours as they can't survive on non-gremlinoids. The lice, that is, not the players. The players are going to be fine, maybe. I honestly would put that penalty way higher. Like, just, I would give them -1 to everything, which... On another note, uniquely, Grimples have a putrid vomit, which is basically a breath weapon. So every 1d4 rounds, they can spew a 30-foot line of vomit as action. Players hit by this have to make a DC 11 fortitude save, where they become nauseated for 1d4 rounds. I think that's pretty great. Just a tiny, tiny gremlin that has covered in lice and can vomit on people. That right there is enough to just be like, done, that's a character, we're doing it. But if the vomit is too gross for you could always go with the Nuno, which has a passive curse that causes hair to grow out of any spot on a living creature that it touches. Or if the creature harms a Nuno, or the Nuno's anthill, whatever part of the body doth harm the Nuno begins to sprout hair and like swell. That's what it says. The hairy spot that the spell begins to turn black and starts pussing. Because why not, right? Seriously, don't kick any anthills around these guys. Just don't kick anthills in general. I'm actually not sure why I have to preface that, but I feel like I should. Did I mention that the Nuno can control ants? That's just kind of their thing. And then of course you have the Jenkin. Jinkies, which can aid other Jinkins, up to 5 of them, stacking to help dismantle an object. So effectively, if you have 6 Jinkins in 10 minutes, you can dismantle anything. Literally anything. I assume that's where the superstition of putting bells on airplanes and motorcycles comes from. You just don't want people randomly dismantling your stuff. You could definitely get away with giving gremlins a wisdom save every time a bell goes off near them. That might work, but on a feather, they just would be frightened for like 1d4 rounds. So that could be a fun way to counterpose that. But in Pathfinder, the Jink can basically give the aid another action to the Jenkin next to them, but that can stack 5 times. In 5th edition, the advantage system wouldn't really work with that, but with the way the numbers work out, if you take a 20, so you take 10 minutes of time to do something, and you have that bonus from all 6 of them, there's no DC in the world that can stop them from dismantling something. We could just call it a ritual spell. 6 Jenkins with a ritual spell can dismantle any non-magical object. I think that's pretty great. Magic logic, maybe just takes a little. And then there's one of my favorite gremlins, the Pugwampis. Don't know how else to describe it except for what is written in the Pathfinder book.
As if the world's most revolting lapdog has somehow learned to walk on its back legs.
Right? That's pretty great. So its only ability is literally just to make everyone within a 20-foot range have disadvantage on every d20 roll. Every d20 roll. This is a very, very unique instance of the disadvantage system inside of Pathfinder. So when Pathfinder gives you disadvantage, you know it's going to suck in D&D. And I love it. Throwing one of these into your party because like, oh, look how cute he is. He's just so weak and pathetic. And then everyone in the party just has a horrible time until you get rid of it. I love it. Other notable versions of gremlins, which are tiny but have wings, are the Galtric. Galtrite. Which, who names these things, by the way? Which have wings but need to feed on blood to live. So, I mean, you have some options there. But this does also open up the ability of having wings on a goblin. So you'd have to be tiny or diminutive as a trade-off. But, I don't know, check out the Pixie video. Boom! Self-promotion. And at this point, you're probably wondering to yourself, isn't Gizmo from the movie a gremlin? The movie Gremlins? Isn't Gizmo from the Gremlins movie a gremlin? Nailed it. To which I would say, no, he's a Mogwai, which is technically some kind of alien or spirit, or ghost alien spirit. He might be in the Star Wars universe. We might be looking at some kind of fuzzy Ewok. And more to that end, I would say he's a cursed Mogwai.
And what kind of curse, you might ask?
Why, were-goblinism, of course, my good fellow.
But wait, didn't we already do a were-creature video?
And indeed we did. Take that, YouTube algorithm. Self-promotion. Activate. This is a great moment to say, hey, go back and watch those videos. But seriously though, we've talked about all these things before. Gremlins are kind of complicated, which is why I've held off making these videos in the past, but here we are. If you really want to play something like Gizmo from the franchises that is the title of this video, Gremlins, not the why you should play, that's my thing. What were we talking about? Gizmo, okay. So at the end of the day, Gizmo is an alien spirit creature, Ewok thing, that isn't inherently a gremlin. He's gremlin adjacent. He's were-gremlin. Okay. So you want to play Gizmo like the creature, you basically have to either use a template or a secondary option. You have 2 character sheets. That sounds super simple and obvious, but I've met a lot of people who just do not want the complexity of 2 sheets, but love running characters with multiple shape changes. As a Gizmo or a Mogwai, I still don't know where that name comes from, you're going to be getting a +2 to intelligence and a +1 to charisma. Mind you, being a diminutive or tiny sized creature, you should also get the effects of that as well, which could be increased in your armor class because you are so small, or as well as a negative to your strength, depending on which rule set you're using, and I would definitely talk to your DM about what seems fair. So even though you can be any class as a Mogwai, you effectively have this rage state that can only be accessed after midnight and then requires you to enter the helpless state that is your cocoon form before you transform. You transform into the goblinoid, fey creature rage styling of your choice until the next long rest where you have to enter back into the cocoon state, at which time you are helpless and eventually revert back to the small Mogwai form. I'm going to be honest, I thought this was complicated, and then I remembered that they had a cocoon form, and now it's really complicated. While you're in this rage form, you would also have sunlight sensitivity, if not damage from being in direct sunlight. I'm not making this up. This is all canonical for the Gremlins franchise. So while being a fuzzy creature seems simple enough, when you transform, your base stats should dramatically differ. You are undergoing a transformation that can be as simple as using the Beast Barbarian class, or if you want to be another class, I would highly suggest building out a stat sheet for each character type. Honestly, I would say the same thing for any Beast type, Barbarian, or Circle of the Moon Druid, or even an Alchemist that has some kind of Jekyll Hyde situation going on. Anything that gives you whole cloth new abilities should really be split into 2 separate sheets. Back to the cursed Mogwai build, if you get splashed with water, you then start populating more Mogwai or Gremlins, depending on which form you are in, and I would argue that these should probably be a level or 2 lower than you, not just direct copies. And depending on how you want to play it, I would argue that these clones should very much be like the essence of the Fey shenanigans, so they don't necessarily have your best interests at heart. But if you and your DM want to play it out that you can just dunk yourself in the punch bowl and ruin a party, then that's really up to you. I guess anytime somebody ends up in a punch bowl, it's not going to be a good party, regardless of how many goblin, gremlin, pups start flying about. I highly advise new druid players to roll up a character sheet for each for each sheep you turn into. What is my life right now? I highly suggest rolling up a character sheet for each beast shape that you know you're going to want to shift into. Or if a wizard has a signature polymorph. This type of pre-planning is super helpful to keep the flow of the game going, as well as make the world of difference for new players. When I've said in the past to use templates for different things like turning someone into an undead or having these rage states, this is a really easy way to implement those. Making a new character sheet that is solely for the augmented stats of the secondary form. Whether it's were-sharks, were-goblins, turning into a stegosaurus, maybe you just turn into a verguli and you're trying to find a way to get your body back. That might be a whole nother video. As for the Mogwai, building your Gizmo character should be your base build, and that's the only real abilities besides being super adorable. Maybe you have proficiency with diplomacy checks and disguise self if you're going to pretend to be a teddy bear, as well as the curse of spawning evil copies of yourself if you're exposed to water. I would leave this up to your DM based on the amount of water you get affected by, and it should be like, I don't know, like a D10 of how many clones start popping out at that point. Curse Part 2, I would start every Mogwai off with something that is similar to the Keen Mind feat. This is not only to show off the intelligence of the Mogwai versus the raged gremlin form, but because it also gives them the ability to have a very astute knowledge of what time it is, so they don't accidentally eat after midnight. This feat, however, would not carry over to the gremlin. As we've seen in the movies, they don't know when the sun's supposed to come up. The rest is up to flavor. Choosing, when to eat your food to go into that rage, to decide if your character acts in the rage state, depending on if they even want to go back to the smaller form. All of these are kind of up to the character, and it's not something you can just do at will. It has stipulations and rules to it. Gremlins are effectively goblins, warped by magic, via them getting lost in the Feywild or twisted by morally ambiguous wizards. Gremlins make great annoyance enemies that get in the way of the party's abilities to function cohesively or keep anything on the rails. So you could definitely see why you should definitely make a party member like this, right? So regardless of whether or not you want the full-blooded gremlin in the party, or you just really want to play like a dark, brooding, cursed Ewok, gremlins are full of unique ways to really mix up your team. But feel free to get crazy with it. Just grab a goblin, grab some face stuff. Maybe you want a sexy goblin, or a spider goblin, or I don't know, some kind of goblin that's really good at science. As with most fake creatures, the possibilities are nearly endless. Just make sure you're really fucking annoying. Like really, really, really fucking annoying. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any cool gremlin stories or Ewok stories or fun fan theories about how the gremlins coexist in the Star Wars universe, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. If you have any artwork you'd like to share with us, D&D related or otherwise, please check out the Discord. There should be a link down below. Make sure to Make sure to like up and follow this video. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about anymore. Make sure to like this video, thumbs it up, drop us a follow, click on that dingly bell. That helps the channel out quite a bit. As well, if you didn't know, we have a Patreon page. Definitely go check that out if you'd like to support the channel. Feel free to join us on Wednesdays and Fridays for the free draw and the viewer suggestion if you'd like to get a character drawn. Thanks again for watching. Just remember to keep your dice on the table and don't go hanging out on the wings of planes anytime soon. Why do you think gremlins hate bells? I mean, fairies like bells. Maybe it's the giant ears. Oh my god, is that why Santa has so many bells on his sleigh? So that gremlins don't dismantle his reindeer? I'm sure they'd be fine.